Revenge with Karen. You know that smell when a server room hasn't been dusted since the Bush administration. It's a mix of ozone, burnt plastic, and the quiet desperation of 1,000 unanswered help desk tickets. That's been my perfume for 15 years. I'm Patricia, the person who makes sure your email works so you can send passive-aggressive notes to Susan in accounting about her yogurt consumption. I'm the one crawling under your desk to plug in the Ethernet cable you kicked loose while daydreaming about early retirement. I am the invisible backbone of this godforsaken company, and usually, I like it that way. Invisibility is a superpower. It means nobody notices when you're watching. But 3 months ago, that invisibility stopped feeling like a gift and started feeling more like a burial shroud. I was sitting in my office, a converted storage closet that hummed loud enough to rattle my fillings, staring at a budget denial email. Before I get into how I burned this corporate frat house to the ground, do me a favor, hit subscribe and drop a like. What you're about to hear is cheaper than therapy and way more satisfying than your ex's failed engagement. It helps the algorithm find the rest of us disgruntled souls. Anyway, back to the grime. The email was from Greg, our new HR director. Greg is the kind of guy who says things like, synergy, and, let's drill down, without a hint of irony, while wearing a suit that costs more than my car. The message was clear. My request for a basic firewall upgrade, a critical security patch standing between our data and every hoodie-wearing hacker in Eastern Europe, was denied. Budgetary constraints. Budgetary constraints. That's corporate speak for, we spent the money on something shiny and useless. And in this case, I found out exactly what that was. 10 minutes after reading that email, I looked out the window. My office might be a closet, but it has a sliver of a view of the executive parking lot, and there it was, a brand new slate gray Porsche Cayenne, gleaming in the sun like a wet seal, still wearing temporary dealer tags. And stepping out of it, the CEO's wife. A woman whose primary contribution to society seemed to be posting inspirational quotes on Instagram while wearing yoga pants she's never actually done yoga in. She glided right into the building, bypassing security, because, of course, rules don't apply to the royal family. Meanwhile, the CEO, Sterling, because of course his name is Sterling, had been preaching austerity in every town hall for 2 quarters. Tighten the belts, team, he'd say, checking his Rolex with a somber expression. We all have to make sacrifices. Apparently, his sacrifice was settling for leather instead of suede. I took a drag from my vape. Yeah, I smoke, sue me. Not in the building, obviously, but I've got a pen that looks like a USB drive. When the rage spikes, I take a hit in the server room. The fans suck the evidence away instantly. Then I pulled up the procurement logs. Here's the thing about IT, we see everything. We're the digital janitors. You buy a laptop, I see the invoice. You subscribe to software, I approve the license. And when you try to hide a luxury vehicle in the company ledger, you better hope the person reviewing it is an idiot. I'm not. I scrolled through back-end expenses. Didn't take long. There it was, buried under a generic vendor code usually used for hardware maintenance. Server rack expansion. Vendor, Stuttgart Logistics. Amount, $118,000. I almost laughed. It was so lazy. The kind of fraud that assumes nobody's paying attention, or that the person who is doesn't have the guts to speak up. They listed a Porsche as a server rack expansion. I guess, in Sterling's mind, it had wheels and a computer, so close enough to IT. Infrastructure, right. My blood started to boil. Not the fiery kind of teenage anger, but something slower, thicker. The kind that builds over years of being overlooked and stepped on by men in loafers. I looked back at the denied firewall request. We were running on 2018 security protocols. A bored teenager in a basement could take us down. But hey, heated seats, right. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out my notebook. Not a digital file, those can be wiped. Locked, corrupted. But a physical, spiral-bound notebook. That's forever. That's analog vengeance. I flipped to a blank page and started writing. Date, time, invoice number, asset tag number 00459. Porsche Cayenne. Allocation, server maintenance. User, Mrs. Sterling, does not appear to improve network latency. I closed the book. The red cover was worn, stained, unremarkable. It looked like garbage. It was the most dangerous object in the building. I didn't know it yet, but the fuse had been lit. I was just waiting for them to hand me the match. And oh, they did. The rest of the week was a blur of petty nonsense. Greg started hovering, looking for inefficiencies. He questioned why I needed 3 monitors. Asked why my team worked overtime. Because the system is duct tape and prayers, Greg. Because I'm rebooting servers at 3 a.m. so your precious newsletter goes out on time. But I didn't say that. I smiled, the tight, polite smile of someone imagining his murder with a stapler. We need to be leaner, he said, leaning in my doorway, admiring his reflection in the server glass. The board wants cuts. Are you a team player? I looked at him. His $400 haircut. Thought about the Porsche. I'm committed to this company's infrastructure, I said. Good, he replied, because Monday's all-hands meeting is a pivot point. We're trimming the fat. Turns out, I was the fat. I spent the weekend preparing, not a presentation, but a war plan. Backed up my emails, synced files to an encrypted drive beyond their reach. Cross-referenced every entry in the red book with printed invoices stored in a fireproof box in my Corolla. Paranoid, maybe, but paranoia doesn't come from nowhere. Monday came heavy. The atrium was packed. AC was broken, again, so the room smelled like sweat, cheap cologne, and lukewarm pizza. Nothing says, we value you, like dominoes during layoffs. I stood near the exit. Always know your escape route. Sterling spoke first. Market challenges, headwinds, the usual nonsense. Then Greg took the mic. The tone shifted, sharper, colder. His eyes found me. We need to address cultural issues, he said. Insubordination, resistance to change, legacy employees who think they own the place. The crowd subtly shifted away from me. Patricia, he said, smiling. That smile, like he was doing me a favor. We've discussed the budget, and yet, I'm hearing you've been creating toxicity. Bad-mouthing leadership. I hadn't. I'd stated facts. But in corporate logic, facts are treason. Effective immediately, he continued, we're terminating your employment. A collective gasp filled the room. This wasn't a quiet Friday dismissal. This was a public execution. They wanted me emotional, angry, loud. Instead, I went calm. Incompetence, I said. Greg blinked. Excuse me, you said I'm being fired for mismanaging the budget. I stepped forward, not toward the stage, toward the man near the water cooler. Clipboard, dead eyes, an auditor. I knew the type. I reached into my bag and pulled out the red notebook. You're the forensic auditor, right? I asked. He nodded. Miller, I think you should see the real budget. Sterling snapped. That's company property. I ignored him and handed Miller the book. It's my personal log, I said. But the invoice numbers are real. You can verify them, assuming they haven't been deleted yet. Page 42, I added. He flipped. Read. Paused. Then looked up at Sterling. Confused. Mr. Sterling, why is there a Porsche Cayenne listed under server maintenance? Silence. Absolute silence. Then he turned another page. And why does your off-site data storage address match a condominium in Aspen? That was it. I smiled, not kindly. I'll leave you to it, I said. I have to go pack. And I walked out. Behind me, the room erupted. Not all at once, but like a slow-building explosion. Murmurs rising into chaos. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I made it to my office with maybe 10 minutes before they cut my access. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. From adrenaline. I sat down and started typing. Fast. I didn't steal anything. That would be illegal. I just secured my backups, and sent one final command. A little dead man's switch in the logging system. If anyone tried to delete transaction history from the past 3 years, it wouldn't disappear. It would quietly archive itself into a read-only partition.